Good morning, KMS. Today we have a new reading and today I'm reading with Mr. Hill, Mr. Micah Hill. He currently is the principal at Glacier High School, but next year he'll be the boss of everyone and be the superintendent of the whole district. So, good morning, Mr. Hill. How's it going today?
It is going well, Mrs. Warnell. Thank you for having me on your show. Glad to be here.
So, the quarantine, a lot of people are trying to keep busy, keep themselves entertained. What are you reading?
Well, I am reading it's actually a nonfiction book, and it's the title of it is called Eichmann's Inferno. And it is a true story about a doctor who was sent to a concentration camp during World War II and was at Auschwitz, which was one of the main camps. It details what his involvement was as a prisoner and as a doctor. And I would definitely say that it's not a very uplifting story, but it is also very engrossing. Just to see and read that firsthand account.
It's interesting because every year we will have a run on World War II books at some point during the year because it's still such a fascinating topic for kids. So I'm assuming this book is even extra fascinating, but something interesting to read during this quarantine. So hopefully you're going to bed with a smile on your face.
I found myself at home and, you kind of look at your options like, okay, I could, binge on Netflix or, scroll through Instagram or things like that. And I just wanted to do something a little more productive. And so this was a book that I had on the shelf and I'm not actually sure where it came from. It was published back in 1960. So it's quite old, and actually the pages are all falling out. The binding no longer holds, but I thought I would do something more productive, and I started reading it and got hooked on it right away.
Hey, I have a machine at the KMS library that can fix the binding for you.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm not going to be too worried about it because I don't know if anybody else is going to read this book in my family. But I like the historical fictions or historical nonfiction, and so yeah.
Did you see Mr. Stuker's video? He talked about loving historical nonfiction and that his grandfather or great-grandfather was actually in World War II.
Well, I know that your show has a lot of viewership, and unfortunately, I did not see Mr. Stuker's video. I saw Mr. Hornby's video, but I have not had the time to go back because I've been so engrossed in reading the book.
Awesome. All right. So you'll have to go back and watch that someday.
Out of curiosity, Mrs. Warnell, what is the viewership for KMS Reads?
We almost hit 30 views with Mr. Hornby's video, so that's pretty exciting. But a few of the sixth grade reading teachers have assigned my Read Aloud series with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as their assignment for the day. So sometimes we get 5 views.
That's awesome. That is great. That is so wonderful. Well, hopefully with my participation, viewership will skyrocket, and maybe you'll have me back as a guest another time.
I'm going to promote your video pretty strongly. So
I appreciate that.
All right. So what are some of your favorite middle school reading memories?
Well, I can certainly categorize them into memories that made me feel good, but also some of the ones that were probably more poignant were the ones that were maybe had a sad ending. And one in particular that I think about is Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. And, that story about a young boy coming of age and having 2 hounds that he had worked for and saved for. And it was Dan and Little Ann, and they were hunting dogs. But it was a great story. But I remember literally, I think I might have been in 6th grade, but I remember just bawling I won't spoil the ending for anybody if they haven't read it, but that was a really good.
I was going to ask you if you cried at the end. I remember my 4th grade teacher read it to us towards the end of the school year, and we were all sad about school being over. And then we got to the end of that book, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the classroom. It's a great book, sad ending, but a hopeful ending.
Yes, all very hopeful, and it's a great story. Other books that I read that I recall, I remember reading Island of the Blue Dolphins, and that was actually a signed reading by one of my English teachers, so everybody had to read it. But that was a really good book. That was by Scott Odell, and probably the one that had the most, that today, even as, even though it's been over 30 years since I read the book, The Hatchet by Gary Paulson was one of my favorites. And one of the things that I recall most specifically about it is it's kind of a survival story about a boy who ends up in a small plane crash and has to, in the wilderness, and has to figure out how he's going to survive. And his only tool is the hatchet. And
yeah, I don't think it's kind of a survival story. I think it is flat out a survival story.
Thank you for correcting me, Mrs. Warnell. It is a survival story. But what really makes me remember it is, so I was I think I was in 7th grade, and my family took we'll call it a vacation, to the Oregon coast and Washington coast. And we were actually up in the Olympic Peninsula, which is where the town of Forks is. And so anybody who knows the Twilight series knows that there really is a town called Forks, Washington.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we stop, we're camping, and my parents they're sick and tired of being in the car with us. And so they tell the kids, you guys go get lost, like go find something to do, go get some exercise. And at this campground, there was this little nature path, just a path. And along the way, they had like little signs for the different trees and plants and things like that. And so we didn't really know how far we were from the ocean, but, we were kind of like, okay, well, we're going to go, we think we can hear the waves crashing on the beach. So we're like, okay, we're headed to the ocean. So we get off the path. We're, you think water flows downhill, so that's where we're gonna meet the ocean. So we're kind of going downhill. And anyway, ultimately we end up lost. We did not find the ocean, and we had no idea where we were. And my younger sister was crying. My younger brother Joel was also quite distraught, but I had read the book Hatchet. And so I'm like, I have survival skills. Like, we need shelter, we need food, and we need water. If we have those 3 things, we're going to be okay. Someone will find us. And so my brother Joel was kind of designated as the hunter. And so he was collecting frogs and salamanders out of the creek bottoms, and was literally stuffing his pockets with them. So you can't laugh.
Let me ask you this. Would you have eaten a salamander?
I think in desperate times, yeah, I might have tried one. I probably would have gone with the frogs, because people, we know people eat frog legs. I don't know about salamanders. And there's some worries about toxins and different things like that. So, but anyway, we had a food source. We were close by a stream, and I remember breaking off branches off these trees to kind of create a lean-to shelter. Obviously we're a little distraught. I mean, we're talking like 7th grade. My sister, I think, was in 4th grade. So we were pretty young. And so we kind of get everything set up, and we'd maybe been gone for 2 hours at the most. So nobody's worried about us. And in my foraging to find more branches that I could break off of trees, I found the path about, I don't know, maybe 20 feet from where we were setting up camp. So
We weren't that lost.
We were not that lost. It probably took us like 10 minutes to walk back to camp. So that is the true story of the lost children of the Olympic Peninsula.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I think Hatchet brings out the survival instinct in all of us when we first read it. They're like, I could live in the woods. I could not live in the woods.
Yes. Yeah, we could.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hill. Go about your day. I'm sure you've got a lot going on, lots of questions from parents and teachers and everything you're doing. So thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome, Mrs. Warnell. I really appreciated being asked to be on your show.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.